All in Sports Network. We love sports.
The Kansas City Chiefs running back room is in an interesting situation, and today we talk about what the Chiefs are looking at the trade deadline. Are they going to add a piece? What do they believe in Rashard Smith? We're going to talk about all the options here today on the Chiefs Report. We appreciate you hanging out with us and making us one of your listens here on this fine Wednesday. Well, let's start talking about this running back room, and I think there's no better way to get into this than saying it's been a bit of a letdown this year. I think when you talk about the names like Isaiah Pacheco and even you want to throw in there Elijah Mitchell, they haven't performed to the level that you would expect. And in so many facets, this team has used the running back room and really running it in general to just kind of help out with the offense because we know that Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to get his own. Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to do the right things to make sure this team wins. And for a lot of options, I think that has been largely successful, especially when Isaiah Pacheco has run like he's been angry at the ground. However, this season, it's not been that same way. And I think we have to start talking about it because ultimately, right now, there needs to be some sort of switch in the running back room if you have to, look out into the future. And I also want to start with that Rashard Smith of the past 2 weeks has really kind of elevated himself. The Chiefs have elevated him. I know that Andy Reid really likes what we've seen from Rashard Smith, and I think long term, maybe he could be an option. I'm thinking like in a year, but if you're racing for the AFC Championship as the Chiefs are, if you're racing for a Super Bowl berth as the Chiefs are every single year, you need to have the reliability of your running back room, especially when you're going to get into playoff games and facing teams that they're going to have a really good game plan on you. If they trust that your running backs aren't going to be the problem for that, then they're going to be able to basically focus more on Patrick Mahomes. And so that's where I kind of start here by saying, what are we going to do with the running backs in the running back room for the Chiefs? Is there a guy that stands out? Is there somebody that can take a stranglehold of the RB1 situation? Because as of right now, that's just not the case. It's not the way that we have seen this, and it's not the way that, honestly, the eye test can really tell you. So that's where we start today, and I want to take a look at the stats. I mean, that's the best way you can kind of really get a vibe of how to see this team, how to look at this team, and understand what the issue is in the running back room. And the first issue, it's very apparent. Patrick Mahomes is your second leading rusher at 250 yards. He is 21 yards away from being your leading rusher. Now I'm all for Patrick Mahomes being the dynamic playmaker he is. I'm all for him being the guy that you expect to come in the clutch and maybe run the ball and do the right things. But that's not the way that this team needs to work for future case scenarios, for in the playoffs, for those types of situations. You have to have a reliable running presence. And Isaiah Pacheco has shown glimpses of that. I think Pop is, in a lot of ways, what Cam Scattaboo is this year in some aspects. I know it's such a weird comparison, but Scattaboo loves the content. Scattaboo runs kind of angrily, and that's exactly what Pacheco does. Now, Pacheco is not as aggressive, and he doesn't, work for the contact as much, but that's kind of the similar aspect as we look at. And so in that way, is Pacheco the reliable option? Is Pacheco a running back that down the stretch you fully believe can take hold, first of all, in this running back room, and not just do that, but also understand that this is a place that he can flourish in? Because in years past, it was like that. And even when the injury occurred, and we saw, obviously, getting Kareem Hunt and so many different running back names before, it's never been a problem to think, okay, Pacheco's going to got it. He's got it. He's going to be here. This year, it's not that way. And I don't know what the downfall was. It seems like he lost a step. Whatever that might be, it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, your running back room is an interesting spot. This is where I want to go past Pacheco, though, because I think there's other guys in this room that could step up. They could. And those names include Kareem Hunt. They include Rashard Smith. And largely what the Chiefs have done through their entire dynasty, and in a lot of ways what they've done for a long, long time, is had a running back by committee. And that's been something they've always really worked for. Now, they've had that top tier guy most of the time. for the past 5 years now, it's been Isaiah Pacheco. It's not going to be that way. And Pacheco is not going to be that top tier guy. And so now we're hearing rumors that the Chiefs are looking at running backs. We're hearing the Chiefs are looking at trading away a running back. Let's kind of talk about that and break that all down from a logistical standpoint. And I first want to start by somebody who wasn't on that list and somebody who is in the running back room, but has done legitimately nothing to earn any sort of spot with the Chiefs, any sort of spot on the roster, any sort of spot in any roster in my mind, and that's Elijah Mitchell. Now, if you don't know Elijah Mitchell, most of his glory days was spent with Kyle Shanahan. He was actually a replacement for Christian McCaffrey in one of the many years that CMC went down. And Mitchell performed very, very well. He was a 6th-round pick, similarly to Pacheco, kind of appeared out of nowhere. I believe he went to Louisiana College, Raging Cajuns. But ultimately, once he has left San Francisco, it hasn't worked out, which is true for a lot of backs. I mean, if you think about the backs that have gone through San Francisco and, they've done well when Christian McCaffrey has gone down, but then they go somewhere else and it just doesn't pan out. That's similar to what has happened to Elijah Mitchell. Now, intriguingly enough, though, Elijah, it's not been he hasn't worked out. It's been he hasn't seen much. He hasn't done much. In fact, he hasn't even shared the field. He does not have a single running attempt. He hasn't appeared in a single game. I mean, there's just nothing here for him. Nothing. Now we know there's injuries and you haven't seen what you wanted to see. And obviously, the last time he played football in an active light was in 2023, and so that's a long way away from 2025, 2 years. But at the same time, he's a cap hell now. You're looking at him and trying to figure out, what are the options? Because we're paying him. Do you just release him? I mean, there's so much to be discussed with that. But the cool thing about this is the NFL has a way of figuring out how to kind of work things out. And I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. Things work out a lot for the Chiefs. And I like that. And I think that is such a very good thing. And so there was an injury that recently occurred. Jordan Schultz has the reports talking about a running back from New Orleans. Keandre Miller tore his ACL on this past Sunday's game, and he will be out for the remainder of the season. So why do I bring up this when we're talking about Elijah Mitchell? Why do I bring up this when I talk about trading Elijah Mitchell? Because the perfect trade has just occurred. The perfect trade has just appeared to you. The New Orleans Saints are not in a good spot. The New Orleans Saints are not in a great position. You know what they do have, though? They have Alvin Kamara. And what they don't want to do is trade him, and he doesn't want to be traded. So in that aspect, you are going to be having Alvin Kamara as your baseline back, which is a great thing. Not saying that's wrong. But where does Elijah Mitchell come in? Well, you need a backup. You need somebody who can basically help out with reps is really the main thing that I'm telling you in this point. And so, will you expect anything back? But not really. But I fully believe if you had Brett Veach go to New Orleans and say, hey, listen, I understand your running back situation. I understand that right now you are not in a position to go out and make a trade for a top tier back. Obviously, that's not the way the Saints look at it. But you need somebody. Well, guess what? You can do this by giving up Elijah Mitchell. Now, what would you expect back in return? Honestly, I could go from saying a 7th-round pick to little cash considerations. I mean, there is not going to be much that you will get back from a trade for Elijah Mitchell. But I know that nobody's taken a stranglehold of that running back one spot, but I know it's not going to be Elijah Mitchell. I know that Rashard Smith, in the position he's in, is going to be with the Chiefs for the next 3 years. I want him to get the reps. I mean, even if Elijah Mitchell miraculously played well in training, whatever happened, I'm not playing him. I'm not. And so with the money that you're spending on a veteran, with the money that you're spending for basically just a roster hole, why not work it out? Why not figure out if you can have the ability to move Elijah Mitchell and make it to where in some facets you can get something out of him? Listen, this guy is active. This guy is here. This guy is ready to play. And the Chiefs they're not going to play him. They're not. So in this instance, if I'm Brett Veach, if I'm looking around the league saying, we want to trade a running back or trade for a running back, I should say. Well, why not make an extra trade that could help you out in getting a running back? Because Elijah Mitchell, no offense to the running back targets I'm going to talk about or the teams that I'm going to talk about when we talk about the Chiefs trading for a running back, but they're not going to want Elijah Mitchell. The one team that actually would, the Saints. The Saints would want him. It would be an easy swap. You get out of some cap space, the ability for you to then go out and use whatever you get, whether a 6th round pick or cash considerations, to get a better running back, fix your running back room even more. It allows for you to make this a competitive trade, make this team a competitive team, and in so many lights, work out of a sticky situation. I think ultimately that's what the biggest key is you're working out of a sticky situation. Now, Elijah Mitchell, when the Chiefs signed him, I had high hopes. I'm not going to lie. I had the hopes that potential was there and that we could see that 2022 form or even 2021 form back in his rookie season when he rushed for nearly 1,000 yards. That's not the Elijah Mitchell we're seeing in practices. It's not the Elijah Mitchell we're seeing anywhere because the Chiefs don't want to play him. This guy is 27 years old as a running back, which running back, their career lifespan is very short nowadays, especially when you're a 6th round pick. And he's playing against Patrick Mahomes in practice now. He's legit just basically a member of the practice squad without effectively being on the practice squad. Something needs to be done. Something does. And so that's where I want to kind of go back here to what exactly do we want to do with these running backs? What is exactly the plan? How do the Chiefs and Brett Veach want to work around this trade deadline? Because we know the rumors are there. We know that the Chiefs really want to figure out this running back room, to figure out what is the best option, because ultimately 864 yards on 195 carries, it's not going to be the big thing. 8 touchdowns is good. I think there are some positives that people are overlooking, but I think the biggest thing to me is that if you are able to go out, trade for a running back, if you are able to go out and, get somebody on this roster in the running back room to help you figure it out, then you're going to be in a very good spot. This team will legitimately, and they showed it last week against the Raiders, they will be an offensive onslaught to be reckoned with. They will be. So that's where I can kind of continue here and kind of see that, is another running back necessary? I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Do you legitimately right now look at this Chiefs team, look at this Chiefs running back room and think, you know what? They may not be the perfect guys. Isaiah Pacheco, Brashard Smith, Kareem Hunt, they may not be the most perfect guys, but they're a 3-headed monster. You can use them in the right way, and they can get us to an AFC championship. They can get us to a Super Bowl. I don't know. I really don't. Because if you look at the AFC picture right now, I like what the Colts are doing, and Jonathan Taylor is a big part of that. I like what the Patriots are doing, and they've got, obviously, Ramondre Stevenson, who fumbles the ball up, but he's got a lot of what I like. I can't honestly sit here and say that I've watched Pacheco this year, or I've watched Kareem Hunt this year, and maybe I've seen flickers, maybe I've seen here and there, oh yeah, there's the pop we know. But I can't honestly say that that guy is going to lead us to the AFC Championship. Now, I'm not saying that he's the king captain or all that, but you need to have a leading running back. And if you look in the past Super Bowl victors and AFC championships and all these things, you can see that there's a clear running back in them. And so for the Chiefs, what's the plan? How do they output this? How do they make it to where they can go out and get a running back, trade for a running back? What are the options on the table? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. The Chiefs running back or trade candidates, like what exactly is out there? We've heard so much talk over now the past 2-3 weeks at this point that trade rumors have really started to heat up. Secondly, we've seen the NFL trade deadline come a lot closer. If you're unaware, it's November 4th. So in that aspect, the Chiefs at this point have 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, barely actually right at 2 weeks to go out and get something to help their team. And We've seen reports from Diana Rossini. We've seen reports from Jeremy Fowler. We've seen reports from Adam Schefter, just all over the NFL media landscape, labeling the Chiefs as a team who is looking for edge rushers. Obviously, with the loss yesterday of Norman Lott, it makes more for an emphasis on that defensive line. But it also checks out that you need to go out there and look for some running backs and look to see what are the options. How can you go out there and make a trade? And one name continues to pop up. And I really am intrigued by this for a couple different reasons. He's a guy that I've seen time and time again. He's a guy that I would have loved to seen with the Chiefs. And he looks good in yellow and red. And it's Breece Hall. Breece played his college ball at Iowa State. He's with the New York Jets. His contract is coming to a close this season. And right now, the Jets are 0-7. And so what will they do? Breece Hall has actively stated he does not want to be traded. And while that can be always taken into consideration, they don't really have the 100% option. And with all respect to Breece Hall, with all respect to any NFL player who has ever said, I don't want to be traded. When you get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, it's different. When you get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, you are pumped into a Super Bowl window. The Jets have not been in a Super Bowl window in the entirety of Breece Hall's career. I'd argue they haven't been in a Super Bowl window for the entirety of my lifetime. Breece Hall would change the way we look at this Chiefs team. Breece Hall would make me believe that this team legitimately has a shot to take over the league and go back to the Super Bowl once again. Do I sit here and say that maybe without him, they're 100% not going to go? No, I'm not going to say that. But what I can say is that he looks good. He looks very good. 100 yards rushing in 2 games this season, 81 yards rushing in 1 game. And this is all while doing it with a pretty bad team. And a team that at one point, it felt like Braylon Allen was going to be taking over as a prolific running back. And so now, if you look at the way Breece Hall has done, 99 carries, 448 yards, just to put this out there, the Chiefs' leading rusher, 270 for Isaiah Pacheco, that's almost 200 yards more. 200. Not to mention the 164 yards in the receiving game. The one crazy part about Breece Hall, and I speak to this more on the Jets' problems than Breece Hall and more on him, but the lack of touchdowns, there's none for him, is an intriguing factor for me, and I don't really think should be something that we consider when you're looking at trading for Breece Hall. I don't think it's something that you should look at and think any differently of Breece Hall because, however, I think it's something to note. I think it's something to remember. But at the same time, I can't imagine him jumping in to this roster, jumping in to this team that could legitimately take to a Super Bowl. Like that would be something that could really change the way we view this team. And so while Breece Hall is, I'm not going to say a insurmountable goal. I think he is definitely the creme de la creme. Like if you are trading for a running back, if you are looking to trade for a running back in the NFL, Breece Hall is your number one option in this NFL trade deadline. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But there's other options out there that you can go get, other options that are cheaper, other options that I would argue also can be a valuable representation of getting the Chiefs to where they need to be. And I think one that I really do like, and somebody who's been mentioned before, is Jerome Ford. And the reason I like Jerome Ford is for a couple different reasons. The first one being that he is a non-useful player in the Cleveland Browns organization. He's a player that I don't see getting many reps over there because Quinshon Judkins has taken over, and there's other people in the running back room that they value more. And so the value for Jerome Ford is very, very light, very, very loose. And so, with all this to be said, the price for him would be fantastic compared to the price of Breece Hall, who arguably would cost at least a second round pick. I know his contract is expiring, but you're going to look for a second round pick. And so, why does Jerome Ford look good to me? Why exactly is he somebody that I look at and think, man, I'd like to see him? Well, we first have to look at the stats, and that's always what you go to. But this season, there's not much to be talked about, right? He's only had 21 carries, and in those 21 carries, he's gotten 71 yards. But you go back to his stats, you go back to prior years, you go back to when he at one point was taking aggressive leads in this Cleveland running back room. I mean, we go back to the years of 2024, 2023, and you think, okay, we've got a 104-yard carry season for 565 yards and 3 touchdowns on a 5.4 average, while also receiving 225 yards through the air. You're talking right there, nearly 800 yards receiving and rushing. Then you look at the 2023 season where he had 17 games played, 204 carries for 813 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground, 5 touchdowns through the air with 319 yards receiving. The ultimate thing I'm trying to show you here is that you can look at Jerome Ford from one light and say that, this year he's not doing well. He's not. But then you can look at the 2023 Jerome Ford. You can look at that light and say, man, what he could do. What he could do. And I talk about running back lifespan. I know he's 26. I know that there is things to put on that. But at the same time, I don't believe that his lack of production, that his lack of yardage comes from anything that he has done, but rather more something that the Browns have done to him and the inability to use him in the proper light. And so, do I think Jerome Ford would be a perfect option for the Chiefs because of his price, because of the ability to add him into this running back room? Yes. The one difference I see and the one argument I think people can make against this is the simple fact that I just spent, 10 minutes before this talking about how the Chiefs need an RB1. And I don't know that Jerome Ford I can trust to come in here and be that RB1. I think arguably it'd be around the same side as Pacheco. And in that light, you already have Kareem Hunt. I know he's older, but do you risk trading something of value over for Jerome Ford and then have him just perform the same as Kareem Hunt? So the risk/reward is there for Kareem Hunt. I think that is what I would call this trade candidate, is the risk and reward candidate. Because ultimately, if you look at Breece Hall, you know what you're going to get. If you look at Jerome Ford, the options are there. You can expect some high yardage games. You can expect some kind of low yardage games. It's an odd comparison, but he's almost like a starting pitcher number 3 in baseball, where sometimes you can play to an ace level, and then sometimes you pitch and you look stupid out there. That's kind of what I can compare Jerome Ford to, and a lot of aspects why I think he actually would be a good candidate, because you're giving up a little for him. You're giving up not something that is hugely of value. I really do think he would just work in a lot of aspects. The next and final guy I want to talk about is Jaylen Wright of the Miami Dolphins. Now, this is a guy that probably is not on your radar. It's a guy that has been very loosely mentioned in trade candidates, very loosely mentioned in any sort of trade rumors. Legitimately, it's been just kind of take a look at him and see why he could be a good option for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so let's first take a look at his stats, which aren't going to be something huge this year because he hasn't been used this year. In fact, he hasn't really done anything. He appeared in one game in which he had no carries, no targets, no nothing. But we go back to 2024 and his rookie year as a 4th-round pick out of the University of Tennessee, and you can see 68 carries, 249 yards. And then he had, 3 receptions, 8 yards, nothing there, but something that could be an option. He also as the ability to do a kickoff return, punt return, stuff like that. So that's a bonus too. But I think when you go down the line of the three guys I've talked about, you talk about Breece Hall, who's your number one top tier option. You go with Jerome Ford, who is in a lot of ways a positive option, a guy who you can really rely on, a guy who you could trust to be a top tier guy or maybe not be a top tier guy. And there's Jaylen Wright, who is going to cost you pennies to a dollar. And does he have the ability to be an amazing running back? For sure. I know it's college, but go look at the stats. 1,000 yards rushing for the Tennessee Volunteers back in 2023, 7.4 average and 4 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns in 2022. Very light ability to be a receiving back, which is one thing that I would like in a trade candidate. If you're not going to go with Breece Hall, I want more of a receiving mindset. I know that we've seen Brashard Smith be that receiving back the past couple of weeks, and I want to continue to give him reps, but I want the other options there because ultimately I think things that have maybe taken down the Chiefs in the past, taken down the ability for them to, put themselves officially in the conversation with these Super Bowl contenders this season is the depth factor in some aspects, because Patrick Mahomes has always had some interesting receivers. I mean, you go back to 2023 and the ability to win the Super Bowl with McCole Hardman and the drops that Marquez Valdes-Scantling had in that season. Ultimately, it was Travis Kelce's year and Rashee Rice broke out. Past that, though, it was a kind of a tough sledding time. Receivers last year, you talk about D-Hop and talk about some other guys who came out and performed, and then you think about this year. I think Xavier Worthy is your guy. You think that the ability for Rashee Rice to be in there and Juju Smith-Schuster and Travis Kelce and guys that can have that's great. But depth is the big factor there. And depth is a factor that you want in your running back room. And I'd argue you have it now, but in some ways you have the bad type of depth where everybody is the same. Everybody produces the same. Everybody does the same type of things. You almost need that extra person, that extra arm, that extra piece of legs that can go out there and really change the dynamic of a game. Do I think Jaylen Wright can change the dynamic of a game? Probably not. Do I think Jerome Ford can change the dynamic of a game? For sure. Do I think Breece Hall can change the dynamic of the Chiefs? Yes. So in this light, if I'm Brett Veach, I'm trading for a back. Whether it be one of these three or another, I don't know. But the options are there, and if you can get Breece Hall, it's over for the rest of the league. Legitimately, I can't see another offense that will compete, especially in the AFC, with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is one of these years where the entire league looks wide open. Teams who have the best offenses have the worst defenses. Teams who have great defenses have bad offenses. Teams who look like they're great can be up by 30 and then lose. Teams can be down by 30 and win. This is a wide open NFL. And for the Chiefs to look the way they have this season, be in a wide open NFL, it's a perfect case scenario for them. It is. So the options are endless for Brett Veach, but the options are not endless for you. Let me know your thoughts on who exactly you believe the Chiefs will go after and trade. Do they believe that they should trade somebody? I know there's comments all over Spotify, YouTube. I bet there's comments on Apple Podcasts, but wherever you might be listening to, watching this, make sure you let me know. Is Jerome Ford a guy that you like? Because I personally think he's my number one option with the ability he has to command the ball and command a couple of different things for the Chiefs. Breece Hall is obviously the perfect option. Obviously, the value there is going to be higher than the other two. So I find it intriguing. I really am excited to see what Brett Veach will do. I'm excited to see what the options are for him when all is said and done. But as of right now, we have about 14 days, legit 2 weeks from, if you're watching this right when it goes live, like right now, like 5 p.m. Eastern, like it is legitimately like almost 2 weeks to the date of the trade deadline. Your time is thin. And for this Chiefs team, if they make a move, it could really be the difference in a Super Bowl win, a Super Bowl appearance, an AFC appearance, AFC championship appearance, I should state, or the potential to get in the playoffs and get upset. Simple as that. That's all I got for you here today. Once again, we appreciate you listening, watching, wherever you might be. If you're on YouTube and you made it this far, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to have some Chiefs podcasts throughout the entirety of the season and so on. So obviously, Make sure you keep up to date with all that is. And yeah, if you're watching or listening on any other platform, follow us, subscribe, like the podcast. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time here on the Chiefs Report, everybody. Peace out.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.